I'm Alex Howard.
And I'm Amanda Silver, and this is Dirty Laundry. And we're back with Maryam Manteghi of Manteghi Family Law. We had such a great conversation with her that we had to bring her back for a part 2. So welcome, Maryam.
Do you think this comes back to your earlier comment about how lawyers are living in fear? Like how they are scared to kind of step outside the box of what we've now deemed currently where parental rights seem to be trumping the best interests of the children.
And human rights.
In definitely human rights. But in my opinion, take it or leave it, is that coming back to this fear of being different, of being the face of change, of stepping outside and putting yourself at risk? Or is it the Kool-Aid's really powerful?
I don't know how powerful the Kool-Aid is if you're not living it, right? I think it partly is fear, and it's just partly taking for granted that as lawyers in a democracy, we have the power to take a stand, right? Like in the Islamic Republic of Iran, if you represent women, if you are a doctor for the protesters, you are a target. They have killed lawyers for representing dissidents. They have killed doctors for trying to help protesters. And those doctors and those lawyers keep standing up.
That's amazing.
And for us as lawyers in this country, I think that we need to often have perspective. Like for me, the law is a noble profession. And I will always believe that I will die on that hill. And I know we get a bad rap, but I think that we need to restore the nobility in our profession, and it takes courage to do that. It takes sacrifice, right? It takes not maybe making the billables that you are making. It takes not keeping up with the Joneses. Maybe it takes moral courage.
And also sometimes lawyers get labeled. It's almost like you get labeled as, oh, you're pro-woman, like you're pro-mom, so I'm not going to hire you. Or you're pro-dad, so I'm not going to hire you. They sort of get into those two different categories.
And I think that blame I lay at the feet of the pro-dad establishment. And I mean, I'm not going to go into that.
They're the Kool-Aid creators.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They are mixing that Kool-Aid
They're
by
mixing
the
that
tub.
moonshine up all night. But talking about the future impacts of this tort. So let's just say by the time,
the same pivot.
Yes. By the time this episode airs, hopefully we will know that the tort of family violence will be upheld. And what does that mean for our country?
So what that means is, this will be law all through Canada, right? It will be law throughout Canada. And what that means is that, at trial, right, that is something that will be adjudicated by a judge, right? And that evidence will be tested like it was with Justice Mandani,
right?
Where she believed because he denied everything, obviously, right?
Of course.
And so she believed Mrs. Alawalia, and then she set a quantum of damages.
Right.
Okay. Now, obviously, like we said, we don't want to have to get to trial to be able to, right? So what is going to be important, and what I'm already doing, is using the tort of family violence. And right now, because we don't actually have a tort of family violence, using the torts associated with the events that are taking place, using that as a very big piece of leverage.
Yes.
A negotiation strategy.
It's armor. It's in their tool, or whatever you want to call it, in their tool belt, artillery, in a woman or man, whoever the victim is, in their toolbox.
Yeah.
And what that means is that you are going to, as a litigant who is going to claim the tort of family violence, what you're going to have to establish, and it's going to be important to establish it at the outset so that they know on the other side that if they do go to trial,
it's coming.
They're going to lose, right?
Right.
So that's why it's, and I talk about this all the time on my page.
Yeah.
Journal.
Your timeline.
My
the
timeline, the journal, the
we
timeline.
talked a lot about the timeline.
Don't just wait till the 11th hour to come with your evidence. Start from the beginning. Show the patterns.
And this is something like I am constantly like I'm talking about this constantly, and I feel like it's getting a really slow uptake. I have a lot of people that come to me, a lot of women that come to me in consultation, educated women who have jobs that are really responsible and serious and well paid. And I'm like, have you been journaling? Oh, well, sometimes I emailed this to myself.
Right.
And it's, there's no excuse.
Right.
And it sounds maybe harsh to say there's no excuse. I want to know what it is that stops you from doing that thing that is going to be the heart of your case. And what I also always, and I've shared this on my page, I'm going to share it again. So if you've been, this is kind of popologist kind of thing, but if you've been following the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively situation,
yes.
I love Brian Friedman. I love Justin Baldoni's lawyer. He has put a timeline of his client's submissions and what his client is essentially saying and asserting. He has put a timeline online for everyone to see. So
interesting.
And because people are following that just because of social, it's like
she's a big star.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're following that. So to me, when you're already following it just for fun, it's not your case. And then he's actually put that case online. You can see the way that Brian Friedman has set up Justin Baldoni's timeline.
And
that's what I want for my clients. I want them to create this timeline. I want them, and you can only have a timeline like that if you've been journaling. And you can tell from the timeline that he's put.
Oh, he's a big journaler.
You can tell but you can tell if it's real versus if it's not.
Exactly.
Because you can tell the details that a daily, or weekly entry would look like or would include very different than someone who goes back just because your memory is
because authenticity is compelling.
Yes,
it's true.
Right? Yeah. Authenticity is compelling. And I get a lot of pushback when I tell my clients and when I tell my followers to journal. And I get a lot of pushback, and I'm actually kind of I don't understand why. I'm kind of befuddled as to why.
I imagine it's just really hard.
I have a business idea.
I mean, listen, I'm here for that. I want to be like, let's talk about feelings for a minute. But no, let's talk about business ideas. That's way better.
As you're talking, I'm like, imagine if there was an app for that.
Well, I've created a journal.
Okay.
And
she's got her own.
I've created a journal, and it's I've created it based on my own experiences, being a victim of family violence, but also being a lawyer. And so I always tell my clients, I'm like, it's $25. Like, just buy it. Like, you know what I mean? Just buy it and buy the journal and do what I tell you. Right. It's like me all beside you.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like having me for $25.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you don't have to do it my way. It's just that the way the way I have it, it brings everything together in one place. So it includes correspondence from the other side, which also can be considered coercive control. And I want everyone to understand that coercive control is at the heart of family violence. And if this decision comes down and is positive, then coercive control at the heart of family violence is going to be acknowledged. And the the definition of coercive control is a pattern. And you have to establish a pattern to be able to establish coercive control. And you can't establish a pattern if you're not journaling, because you can't just a pattern one day. Right? It's really critical. And you don't I'm plugging my journal. You don't have to buy my journal. You can just literally sit in your car and write it on a piece of paper. But do it every single day.
Right.
And it's so critical because that's the skeleton of your case.
Man, you know what's so funny? We get so many messages from mediators asking how we built our practices.
It's so true. They message us wanting to know where they even begin, how do they find clients, what even goes into a drafted agreement.
Exactly. And that is why we built the Mediator's Launchpad. It is basically every single thing you possibly need to start your own private practice.
It's literally the roadmap we wish we had. It covers everything from emails, templates, website building, pricing, everything you need to run your business.
And don't forget coaching, one of my favorite things to do. You don't just need information. Sometimes you need to also talk it through with someone.
It's kind of like group therapy for mediators.
So check out themediatorslaunchpad.com. If you're a mediator thinking about going on your own, you're starting your own private practice, that is the first place to start. And give us an example of like, okay, every day, what are we looking for?
And this is what is really interesting because people don't actually realize sometimes that things are.
That's why I want you to dumb it down.
That things are. So for example,
yeah.
I'm going to go back to my,
sure.
right. And I don't have children with my ex, so it's not going to necessarily involve the children. But for example, I'm going to day one, I'm going to sit down and, and I talked about this on my Instagram page. So the woman that he was in a relationship with, unbeknownst to me, started to follow me. So I would look in the rear view mirror.
Physically follow you.
Yeah. So I'd look in the rear view mirror and she was there. And so, the first time it's kind of like, okay, right? Because I'd already had suspicions, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't write it down right away. So that's why I'm telling my clients.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you would necessarily write down because until it happens over time.
Yes.
But now if I'm telling you and you're following me and because the experiences of victims of family violence are very categorized because abusers have a playbook.
They really do.
Right? They're not original people.
No.
They weaponize the finances or the extracurriculars or the medical decision making or the educational decision making.
Here's what worries me is that's not clear enough for people. Like you can speak the language because this is your work.
Right.
And this is your personal experience and your work. I want us to really dumb it down.
Right.
So that people understand what we need.
For example,
he didn't like that I wore this outfit and I had to change.
Oh, yeah.
Let's really dumb down the examples.
He didn't like that I wore this outfit and I had to change. And
he ordered for me at the restaurant.
And he called me a bleeping bleep bleep. Right?
Right.
That's the kind of thing you're not going to necessarily remember exactly if you have to go back and think about it. But in that moment, you're going to verbal abuse, calling you a bleeping bleep bleep.
Right.
Yeah. I remember one time, and I've never spoken about this. So this is one time I refused to go. I didn't want to go to dinner at somewhere where we were invited. I just didn't feel like I didn't want to go. And essentially, he ended up throwing all of the furniture against the wall, breaking all of the dishes. It was a movie. It was it was like a Fast and Furious movie. Yeah. And I just remember being my only goal in that moment was to save the cat. Right. So my only goal was, okay, where am I? I'm going to put Kiki in the closet and close the door. And then he just destroyed the apartment. He trashed the apartment like a rock star. Okay. He trashed the apartment and I never journaled that. I, a lawyer, a historian, my undergrad is in Russian history. I, a writer. I'm a published author in 2 languages. Did not sit down and did not journal that. Did not journal the exact things that happened. The exact did not take pictures of the destruction. I didn't do it because I froze.
You were terrified.
I was terrified. I froze, and my goal was to save Kiki. And it's really. Now it's easy for me to talk to you guys about it. But if I was having to go to court.
Right. In that moment, the next day.
Or no, if I had to go to court 3 months after and I hadn't recorded the specifics of what happened, Your Honor, he trashed the house.
Right.
It gets lost. Yeah. And it was such a
So you need the specificity.
And the pictures. I didn't take pictures, right? Yeah. And I know that it's really difficult in a moment like that. But I didn't have my page when I was going through this. There have been a lot of strides made in the domain of family violence since I was in that situation.
Yeah. There are some pros to social media for sure.
Right. And so I'm hoping that because I didn't have the trigger of having heard about it somewhere, having seen it somewhere, and having been told this might happen to you. Something similar to this will happen. You need to sit down and when you get a minute, document it.
Yeah.
Like if his, one of the things that was also, I was just in Dominican Republic with my mom, but it reminds me of the abuse that happens when you leave the country. I went on various vacations with my ex.
We haven't talked about this yet.
Right?
Yeah.
And we were all inclusive, whatever we were on, and there was always really serious incidents of family violence while we were away. Constant, always. And people don't think about talking about that or recording that. And these hotels, the people that work there have been trained to just like they don't want it to get out, right? Like they're not going to call the cops.
No, right.
They're not going to, right? Like they're just going to try to calm the situation down because it's their business, right? And so there was always just like verbal abuse, just intimidation, bullying, physical abuse while on vacation. And because they know that there's like the level of scrutiny on vacation drops. And especially, I mean, that's kind of all inclusive, but if your abuser is from another country, especially if that country is not a Hague country. Okay. And you go back to that country with him, you're at his mercy completely. Right.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite movies is Not Without My Daughter, Sally Field.
Right.
I mean, to me, that was just like, it was just so telling. She had no idea.
Yeah.
Right? She was not, even though she was an American, she was in a country where she was the property of her husband.
Right. But imagine if you're actually Iranian and you are you can't go to the American embassy.
She didn't have an embassy to go to. Right. She was the lucky one because she could get out.
And the powers that be will give your child to the father
in the divorce.
And you have no recourse.
So I think really the lesson is write down anything and everything and then let your lawyer decide what's pertinent to the file or what needs to be.
Well, it's yes at the end, but when you write down everything and anything, and I don't mean like I ate salad.
No,
right? Like I think
I just want to be more open.
Yeah, my mother-in-law called on Thursday morning and asked for $700 US. Right. My ex told my husband at the time told me to go take $700 US out of our joint savings and send it to his mother. That depleted our joint savings to this amount. Right. And maybe in that moment it's $700 US. But if you keep writing after 3 months, you read back and you're like, oh, wow, I've just sent $15,000 US to his family back in wherever. And we have now depleted our joint savings. That's financial abuse. Right. And you see that, like it's hard to see when you're in it. But if you just write it down, like these are events that happened, right? It's not necessarily in that moment abuse. But over time, when you yourself look back, you're like, oh. The other thing that's really important, I always talk about journaling, is your vaccination against gaslighting, right? Smart. So when you journal, like today, he told me that he didn't take the car, but there's no car in the driveway. So who took the car, right? Like even if you're in your mind, you're foggy about something, you write it down. And then 3 days later, he'll say, oh yeah. And then I took the car. I went shopping that day. And then you're like, oh wait, you did take the car. Why did you, right? Whereas if you hadn't recorded it, you would have, that like, gaslighting would have succeeded.
Yeah.
And like the car is a benign thing, but like just, but
it can, but that can be a method of control too, because you're
absolutely
isolating someone, right?
Threatening about the kids. If you'd leave me, I'm taking the kids. My ex would always say, if you ever get pregnant, I'm taking the kids back to Lebanon and my mom is going to take them and you'll never see them again.
Jeez.
This was,
weaponizing children before you even had them.
So I can't imagine he's the only one saying, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just like things that he told me that in that moment were, but me and my buddies know that if she's going to call the cops, you start throwing yourself against the wall. So you harm yourself. And when the cops show up, you are the one with the scratches. They have like there's like a bro code.
Yeah.
They all tell each other this. Yeah. They talk to each other about this.
Well, and this is why I keep saying, when women talk, it's considered gossip.
I love
when
that.
men talk, it's, whatever. But the women talking is what saves us. And so now we know also the journaling. Don't just talk to your friend, write that shit down.
Right. Like if he's telling you, this is how, like just something benign, for example. One of the things he said to me was, that my brother and I have a surefire way of making sure we can get a girl to do whatever we want. And in that, and he said, just tell her she's fat.
Oh my God.
As long as you tell her she's fat,
I swear
she's
there's a
yours.
movie about
break her down.
Some
Break
college frat.
And I just remember, and like, in that moment, I just remember like that was seared into my memory, but I didn't write it down. So now I want you all to write it down. A lot of what I do and a lot of what I say and a lot of what I am trying to do is to prevent you as my followers, prevent my followers from being in my situation.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of pushback from my Don't think I don't get a lot of hate. I do. I do. I get women who are
the
like,
bigger you become in social media, there's always going to be,
you're shaming us.
Right.
You're shifting blame to us.
I
get
you're
getting female pushback.
I get
because you're putting
I don't even count that like block.
No,
but like
because you're putting the responsibility on the victim to do something.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I say to those people that you're either, you can't stay a victim forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? That's just not feasible. Why would you want to? And so my page is about empowerment.
Yes.
To come out of that victim state and take back your power and make change and do something about it. Stand up for yourself.
Like, so it's not about blaming. It's about empowering them with the know-how to get out of that shitty victim situation.
Right. Like I was a victim of breast cancer, for example, right? And they told me you have to get chemo, you have to get radiation to get out of this situation.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, did I like getting chemo? No. Did I like getting radiation? Not so much. But I knew I had to do those horrible things to be able to come out the other side. I want people to think about family violence in the same way.
I like that analogy. Wow. Yeah. Take back the power.
Take back your power. Yeah. And the nurse who came to me, I had super long hair when I was about to go into chemo. And it was like almost 20 years ago. So it was like I was super young and just this was so shocking to everyone. And she said to me, she said, you're going to lose your hair. And I looked at her and I said, Tammy, I know. And she's like, oh my God, thank God. She said, we always set aside time and a meeting with our beneficiaries, right? To explain to them that they're going to lose their hair. And our biggest fear is that they're going to refuse chemotherapy because of their hair. Oof. And I was so scared because you have such beautiful hair. I was so scared that you were going to be, I didn't sleep all last night.
Tammy.
I love Tammy.
Tammy, shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Tammy.
I mean, nurses are
everything.
Shout out to Tammy. Yeah.
But you know what? But that's the thing. And this is what we talked about again, going back to not just, belabor, but that whole idea of the white privilege where you're like, oh, I can't be othered because this is so comfortable over here. But it takes that level of discomfort and of willing to be bold in whatever sense you want to take that in for the change to actually happen.
Because I live in a country where I have free healthcare and they are going to give it to me for free so they can save my life, and someone else will die because they don't have that. And it was very palpable.
Lose your hair, lose your life.
Yeah, like when I had to come home from Bosnia, I was working for the UNHCR. I had to come home from Bosnia to go through treatment. And I had a friend, a very close friend in Bosnia, who was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and she died because, and I'm convinced that had she been in Canada, she would have lived. And so it was very palpable to me in that moment, the difference that I have this, like, this is horrible. Like having cancer sucks.
Yes, of course.
Being a victim of family violence sucks, but I'm in Canada. And that's why, yes, I do bash the family court system because it's my job to bash, but
there's room for improvement.
Well, exactly.
I'm also extremely cognizant of how it would be if I was living in Afghanistan. Islamic Republic of Iran, Bangladesh. Like
these conversations wouldn't be happening.
No. Right. And
certainly the three of us would not be sitting here having.
And I think,
or maybe we would just be, hidden
under the radar.
Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't have a podcast.
We wouldn't have
That's
microphones.
what I mean. We would not have.
We have just in silence. Yeah.
And that's why I always share also that kind of material on my page because I want women to have perspective, right? Yeah. And I want empowerment, not victimhood.
Yeah. So in this, as we're talking about how lucky we are to be in Canada, this is now a federal, will be, hopefully, fingers crossed, knocking on everything, a change to the federal law. So does that set some kind of stage internationally?
Yes.
Like, do other countries look to us? Okay.
Absolutely. Other countries absolutely look to us. And I think that it's, the thing about this particular tort, which is very difficult, is that coercive control is the default type of relationship dynamic in the world today generally. In employment law, in realpolitik, politically, right? That is like even between parents and children, right? Yeah. Like wait till your father gets home. Like, this was our like, okay, you're not going to be able to do this. If you don't do this, you're going to be grounded.
Right.
And it's so what we're asking the world to do, or Canada at this point, is to shift their perception of how to communicate, how to relate one to another without coercion and coercive control. And that is a huge ask.
I think it's also an ask of the two genders. I mean, it's a gendered issue, right? Yeah. It's all of a sudden it's like,
but a gendered issue that's
so patriarchal.
Well, that's
you can't do it anymore because you're gonna have to pay for it.
It's like in this way we've outgrown the system. And so we're asking it to change radically in a world that seems less and less inclined for change and for supporting these gendered issues. Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a big ask.
And my concern, I just want is how do you, I mean, you talked about the journal, you talked about the documents, but it's not like physical violence, which is easier to prove, right? You got the bruises, you got the x-rays, what have you.
Even police reports.
Even the sort of the financials, certain things you can prove. The coercive control, the patterns. It's really about he said, she said.
The patterns are about what makes patterns compelling. And I actually have a reel on my page, which shows they had a Valentine set up at the resort we were at, and they had all of the little tables set up in rows.
Yeah.
Of two.
And for Valentine's Day. And
I saw it.
And I remember thinking, oh my God, because now, when you see it, you can't unsee it. So my whole world is family law. My mom is
Your
like,
poor
oh
mom,
my
she's
God.
trying to be on vacation.
Yeah, my mom is like, I want you to get married. But I'm looking at these rows and rows of these little tables, and it's so compelling. You look at these rows and you're like, wow, like it was like you took notice. But if there had just been one table and one set of chairs, you just walk by, right? And that's what made me think about the fact that if you have an event if you have one event or one incident where he says to you, God, you're fat, right? I mean, it's not great, right? Like, and
it's obviously a jerk,
right? Yeah, that's a jerk.
Isolated on its own,
right? Yeah. But imagine you have a series of incidents, all from various types of categories of abuse. So you're fat. Tomorrow, send $700 to my mom from the joint account. The next day, she's following you and you take a picture. Then the next day, he comes home and trashes the entire house. See?
Right. You're seeing all the, it's hitting all the.
Yeah. Because coercive control is a pattern of behavior, but it's not all the same kind of behavior, right?
I think that's the tricky bit.
Right.
Is it's patterned, but in a non-patterny kind of way, because there are so many angles that are used to ultimately break you down.
Right.
So you don't see this glaring, he said I'm fat 7 days in a row.
Yeah.
You see this mixed match.
And you have to really
mishmash of different incidents. And so I think that's, again, for our listeners, what you need to hone in on is anytime you feel something not right, write it down.
So
Track it.
Coercive control is the cultivation of an environment of fear, control, and shame between two people. So if you're feeling fear, control, and shame in your relationship with your intimate partner, then you need to write that down. And the reason and how you know, and I know because sometimes you're just so in it, you don't realize how you know you're feeling that is that you have this constant tight knot here, and you're constantly vigilant and worried about, and you're constantly walking on eggshells. And if that's you, then you need to write everything down, even if you don't want to leave. Right? A lot of people don't want to leave.
Well, don't make the decision today.
Right. Yeah. But make sure, and I think that one of the things for women that is really difficult is getting over that feeling of, okay, but love needs to be like, but if you love someone, that's not what you do. You don't love. And it's really important to understand that in any relationship, the first step is loving yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, you're not going to love the other person. And it took me a long time to integrate that into my understanding of relationships. But realistically, everyone says, oh, marriage is about love. It shouldn't be about money. It shouldn't be about, but yeah, it is about love, loving yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, you should not be getting married.
Right. Well, and it's so interesting because even if you wanted to say, okay, marriage is about falling in love and deciding you want to be with this person, cool, like whatever. But divorce doesn't have to be about hate, right? If marriage is about love, the divorce isn't just about anger and resentment and vitriol. It can still be loving and kind. But if you're in, obviously, this pattern, this is a different story. I'm not trying I am inevitably mixing these two up. I just think if you want to be so binary about what relationships are, you need to understand, this is why I'm always telling people get a prenup, but yeah, there can be love, but there also needs to be parameters of this contractual obligation that you're entering into, because on the flip side, it's way harder to get divorced than it is married. And so if we're not accounting for that, if we're so close-minded and binary about what relationships are, it's really not opening up the door to all of this other shit that we know is going on. And so, yeah, by limiting, by having blinders on that are, oh no, well, if I just love him enough, I'll fix his childhood trauma and he'll stop beating me up. Like, no, it doesn't work that way.
You don't build a home without getting home insurance.
Well, or without having a really solid foundation.
Right? Because you don't want the thing to happen, but it might. Your roof might
You can fill your home with love, but the structure still needs to be
protected.
Exactly.
100%. So you hear a lot about family court judges coming down from all different types of courts. So they may not necessarily be in family law, right? They could be from anything.
Yeah.
So let's just say this tort goes through, and now this opens up the door for this, new movement of seeking damages. Do you think the judges will actually look at those patterns and actually make the findings? Yes, that is coercive control.
I think it depends on the judge.
Right.
I think this is a problem that we have in family court here, where you can get a judge in family court that has no background in family law.
It's wild.
And as much as I think that's insane, I have to say that Justice Mandani did not have a background in family law.
Right.
But so I think what is really critical is not necessarily the background, but the willingness to bring your acumen, your education, and your skill set and absorb the information and everything you need to know, which she did, about a different kind of a law that you're going to be adjudicating in. And so generally speaking, I think she's an exception. I think she's just an exception. And everyone just has to realize she's a unicorn. Don't you can aspire to be her, but you can fangirl. You're not going to be her. Okay. And so that's just a reality. But I think just generally speaking, you definitely need to have judges who have a family law background. Like I think on the whole, I've always fared better with my clients where judges have had a family court background.
Right.
I think I've fared badly with judges who have had a criminal background because I find that judges who have a criminal background suddenly become devil's advocate for the abuser. Right? They're like, oh, well, this doesn't really make out. Like it's not beyond a reasonable doubt what he did. Like their brains
they use their criminal brains.
Their brains just can't make
guilty in criminal court is different than guilty in family court.
So their brain, like just if you remember OJ, right? He was acquitted because of that glove, but then her family won the civil suit against him for like millions and millions of dollars. So I find that, that's my experience. And so I've seen it over and over again where criminal background judges, their brains just can't, it's like,
you can't take off that hat.
You can't turn that.
Yeah.
So
well, it is a special person, I think, that needs to understand the intricacies of family law and family dynamics. Do you see this, while we're talking about devil's advocate, being weaponized?
Yeah. Absolutely. When everything,
that's what I'm already terrified
abusers
of.
weaponize everything, right? Everything will be weaponized
by the abusers, not by the victim.
By the abuser. Yeah. So that's what I meant. Yeah, or by the court.
He's gonna say, "Oh, I was the one that was," And I think it's important to state that definitely, because I get all kinds of people sending me all kinds of messages. This can happen to men too. Men can be victims too. And I'm not saying they can't. Totally. And it's actually happening right now in my family where there is a male, like a male member of my family who's going through this. So I acknowledge that. I don't service that population because I believe that they are well served already.
Agreed.
I service an underserved population and it's my niche, right? And it's what I do. I'm one person and I have the freedom to do what I want.
Exactly.
And that's true that they there are genuine cases of that, statistically far lower than women.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes, when something like that is weaponized, the onus is on the judges. Right? The onus is on the judges to be able to be discerning and new
and see through it.
Yeah. And do I have the confidence in a majority of our judges to be able to do that? I'd like to.
Yeah, I'd like to as well.
Because is it going to be a situation where it's going to be a race to put this apply for this tort? You're going to have the abuser who hires the lawyer who is going to, father's rights, she's the bad one, alienation, he's the victim, blah, blah, blah. Is it going to be a race to who can put this application in? Can they both apply for this tort?
They can.
And then it's he said, she said, and...
But if you've been journaling, and if you, and this is what I talk about, right? I talk about two kinds of criminal charges that I feel women do not avail themselves of when it comes to this kind of proceeding. And those are the two charges are criminal harassment and domestic mischief. Those are criminal charges.
Mischief. I haven't heard of that one. That sounds a little kinky.
What's that about?
I mean, it can be if you're not in criminal court. But most people who are not domestic mischief is what? The destruction of the other person's property.
Oh, interesting.
For example, I love that I have an example.
Property.
Yeah. Okay. So I had a Louis purse that was gifted to me by my maid of honor at my witness at my wedding.
Okay.
Nice gift.
Beautiful gift. Beautiful purse.
Yeah.
And he, in a fit of, whatever he was doing, he destroyed that purse. Right. And I think he destroyed something else now. If I remember. Oh, and then he also bashed my car with a blunt instrument, and so he was charged with with domestic mischief. The destruction of another person's property within an intimate partner situation is domestic mischief. And so don't do it if you're if you should not do it. Don't destroy anyone's property. Destroys yours. But if someone destroys yours, you call the police. And a lot of people don't call the police because the police sometimes show up and they're like, right? And that's okay because it's their job and they're getting paid a lot of money to do that. And they're also getting a great pension and you're probably not. So make them work for it.
Because then you have this documented. This is now your paper trail.
Right.
Unless it gets turned against you because he's thrown himself against the wall.
Well, if he's thrown himself against the wall, that's another reason why you need to journal. That's another, because you need to strengthen your pattern. Like he can throw himself against the wall one time.
Right.
But if you've documented that he told you that me and my buddies sit there.
Right.
And then this is my buddy who did this to his ex and she's the one that had to go to jail. Telling you the story.
Right.
If you write that down on that day in real time.
And then he actually does it a month later.
Right? Then, you're gonna, and then obviously if you're also, if that happens and if you can record that with your phone, if you can do it safely, I mean, how safe are you if he's throwing himself against the wall? But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, and then one of the other things I want to talk about, because I mean, we're here now and third-party affidavits. If you have third parties, your best friend comes over and sees what's going on. Third-party affidavit from your mom who, saw your injuries. Third-party affidavits from people who can go under oath, right? And say what they've seen is also it helps. And I mean, definitely there is a sense of like, it's your mom, right? So she's going to take your side.
Take it with a grain of salt in some capacity.
But if it's all corroborated, right? If there's corroboration, if there's a pattern that's already been established, if there's journaling that's been going on, if there's other evidence, right? So that's why it's so important to gather. It's so important to be vigilant, even if you're not going to leave in that minute, right? Even if you're not going to leave. And I think a lot of times women don't want to give up on the fantasy. And so they don't want to make it real for themselves. And if they did, they'd have to, if they wrote it down, it would become real for themselves. I think that's
the answer of why people don't want to do it.
But I'm thinking of the women who are post-separation who should be journaling this too.
Oh,
right?
For sure. If you're still in battle.
Because chances are, if you were with someone like that, post-separation, it's probably going to get worse.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, I just want to make it very clear to everybody that post-separation, generally speaking, in my experience, has not been like post-separation. The judges are very cognizant of breaches and coercion that he's written to you, like, I'm not going to give you the kids tonight because you did this and that, right? Those kinds of screenshots, that kind of coercion, obviously you need to keep journaling all the time. But for the purposes of the tort, right? The tort is strictly, I don't know if it's strictly because we don't know what the decision says, right? But so far it's what's happened within the marriage, within, like, not post-separation. And post-separation will have different consequences, right? Costs can be a consequence of that kind of behavior post-separation in litigation. And so certainly it's just as important to be you just always need to be journaling. And so many people are really happy to diarize, their love. Like, you'll
be
find
very therapeutic, just to get it out on paper, so it's no longer, taking up space in your
and I find that a lot of times when you do that, you feel a lot lighter and you are less vigilant because there's a record of it somewhere. And you can feel calm about that.
The record was going to be my next question of like how that can, if discovered, right? Like if you're in an abusive relationship and you're trying to document these things, or you're recording things, or you're collecting this evidence, it can also put you in a really precarious position.
Yes, I agree with that. And I mean, these are the couple things that I suggest to my clients. Number one, do it at work. Leave it at work.
Leave it. Smart.
Okay. If there's any kind of like recording, whatever, email it to yourself with the time and then delete it.
Yeah, smart.
Make sure your phone, like I always tell my clients, change your social media. Like, I don't like to have my clients go into litigation with social media.
Yeah.
But a lot of them work through
the world we
right?
do, yeah.
Right.
So, get rid of anyone you don't know. Like, you should not have followers that you have even a shred of doubt about who they are.
Right.
Change your passwords every week.
Oof.
Change your Gmail password. I mean,
I can barely remember.
I know.
You know what though? I do have to change mine because I forget it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
like I can't.
I love when they're like, you can't use the one you just used within the last 3 months. I'm like, I can't remember.
I'm like resetting. That's it.
But people, you
have
have
worth it. Yes, worth it.
Going to family court is very costly.
Right.
And it's also it's a very costly thing where you don't really see a return on your investment.
We were just talking about that in a previous episode, how like the other types of courts, there's a winner and there's a loser for the most part, right? You're guilty, you're innocent. You win, you lose.
Yeah.
Family court,
there
isn't. It's like just who lost more.
Right? And that's a bitter pill to swallow because here you are. Right? Paying the lawyer.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And then where you're on a hamster wheel because where you end up is not really necessarily that far from where you started.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And that's also why I always tell my clients, you need to be making your own money all the time. Yeah. You need to have your own money. Like in Bosnia, and this is not legal advice. In Bosnia and in a lot of different cultures and countries, women have something called a crni fund, which means like a black fund, which is a secret stash that
I know a lot of women that have it here too.
Right? A secret stash.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is not legal advice at all. But I'm just observing.
Some people do this.
It's like from Schitt's Creek.
Occasionally.
Hold on, Moira Rose, may she rest in peace. Moira Rose on Schitt's Creek talked about the emergency Birkin. I've talked about this before.
Emergency Birkin.
It's the same notion that just in case you need money and you need money fast to get out of a situation, it's there.
It's emergency Birkin. And I have, like I live in Oakville and I go sometimes to these consignment places and to see what they have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and the woman there told me that there are women who come to her with their brand new purses. So because they only have, they're married to wealthy men.
Yes.
And they only have the gifts or a credit card. They don't have anything other than that. Yeah. And it won't raise suspicion if she goes and buys a Louis or a Prada. And what she does is then she buys all of those things and then puts them in consignment. So that's the only way she gets cash.
Wow.
Don't be in that position.
Don't be in that
I'm
position.
not judging you, but I'm telling you,
never.
I'm telling you as a follower of mine, as a follower of Dirty Laundry, your money is sacred. There's nothing more important in this entire world than a woman having her own money that only she has access to. And I'm going to die on this hill again and again and again. Yeah. And if that's in gold, that you have in a safe box, if that's whatever that's in, because you should not be in a democratic society like ours and not be in a financial situation in which you can save yourself. Yeah. And it's not I'm not blaming, I'm not shaming. I'm saying this is your power and you are able to exercise it in Canada. Yeah. Do it.
Yeah, this is your wake-up call if you haven't already. Yeah. Oh, Maryam, thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so honored to be here with you guys.
This has been such a treat. We cannot thank you enough.
Oh, thank you.
And fingers crossed.
This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver, produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Productions. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it, and give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening, and go easy on us. We're not your ex.